group. So if you want to join us on Facebook, do please. We'll be happy to have you along. So with me today in the studio to my right is Domenic Caruso, and behind me is our PC candidate, Tony Baldinelli. I welcome you both.
Welcome everybody here in this beautiful Niagara Falls downtown. On behalf of Voice of Niagara, I'd like to welcome everybody to the show with candidate Tony Baldinelli. A shout out to everybody. If you click on the link, you'll be able to see us live. If you're on the radio, tune it up because we're going to get excited today.
Well, thank you, Peter, and thank you, Dominic, and especially thank you for allowing me this opportunity to say why I'm running to be everyone's representative for the Niagara Falls riding in Ottawa.
Well, we appreciate you coming down on behalf of Voice of Niagara. That you were able to come out. We've had quite a few candidates out. We've only got one other candidate to come on to the show. Two more candidates. Thanks for the correction here, Peter. Always correcting me. He's the editor of Voice of Niagara, by the way. And so we can get started with some background on Tony. First of all, want to clear up a few things. I know Tony and I are both Italian, and we both have multiple people running around with our names. So I just want to make it clear before we get started with Tony and how he got here, that Tony did not run in the last municipal election. That was his cousin, Tony Baldinelli. This is another Tony Baldinelli, and he's running in the Conservative for the Conservative Party in this election that's coming this fall.
So, and thank you, Dominic. And thank you again for allowing me this opportunity. I'm running in this election because I believe in community. And, it's about building a better future for my family and for all of us, and everyone who's lucky enough to call Niagara their home. So that's why I decided when Rob announced that he was retiring, that I would consider putting my name forward for the nomination.
That's it. That's incredible. I mean, I was quite surprised that Rob decided to retire. I thought he was going to make a play for the leadership, but like everybody, he made the decision that it was time for him to move on. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how you got from working for Rob. I know you and I have talked for quite a bit. How did you get from working for Rob to getting one of the strongest endorsements that I've seen posted on Facebook a few months back by Rob personally?
Well, I've been lucky in the sense that, I've had a pleasure of a diverse and a varied and a very rich work experience. After I graduated from university at McMaster in 1988, I was, I really appreciated politics and followed politics, and I valued those policies of the Conservative Party at the time. Okay. So I decided to go up to Ottawa, and I thought, who better than to contact your local member of parliament and say, hey, how can I go about getting my resume out? How can I go about looking for work? And so, you know what, Rob was nice enough. I didn't know Rob at the time. Okay. He was nice enough, and his assistant, Kevin McIntosh at the time, were nice enough to just put me on a contract. So what I did was I started working on a little contract, stuffing envelopes. Okay. For just minuscule payments. But about 3 weeks into it, a staffer that was working in Rob's office decided to leave at the time. Okay. And so at that time, he was looking for someone to fill that spot. And I was fortunate enough to then spend the next 5.5 years working for Rob.
Wow, in Ottawa. Did you move your family up there, or did you just commute back and forth with Rob?
It was just myself. I was just graduated from university, so I ended up living up in Ottawa. And I ended up, after Rob lost in the 1993 election campaign, I decided to move back home to Niagara. Nice. And then what I did was I took a 1-year public relations course at Humber College to add to my
I took a similar course at Niagara College.
Yeah, I did.
One of the best courses I ever took. It really allowed me to tap into myself and get to know people. And I mean, we live in a world with people. What better course to take than a public relations course, which is not a human relations course or an HR course. It's the ability to communicate with people and relate to them and read them and talk their language.
Quite an important aspect for any politician.
Incredible.
Well, I mean, using the diverse skills that I learned working for Rob, it made it kind of an easier transition to taking the program. So I graduated with honors from that program.
So did I.
And then that was right around 1995 at the time of the provincial election when Mike Harris won in Ontario. So at that time, I decided to put my resume forward, and I ended up lucky enough to end up becoming the legislative assistant for the Minister of Citizenship, Culture, and Recreation at the time.
Wow.
Her name was Marilyn Mashinsky.
Okay.
So I was lucky enough to work with Marilyn for almost 2.5 years.
Fantastic.
And, subsequently, you know, shuffles always happen in government. And so Marilyn was shuffled out of cabinet. And at that time, staffers tend to lose their positions.
Yeah,
and,
that happens.
From there,
that happens.
using that base of the public relations certificate, I applied at Hill & Knowlton, which is a government relations, public relations firm in Toronto. And I ended up working at Hill & Knowlton for almost 5 years.
Okay.
So I stayed in Toronto and had a great experience there. I had some fantastic clients to work with. British Energy, which ended up becoming Bruce Power, which operates the nuclear plant.
They are huge.
I ended up doing their community relations. So
Wow.
I go up to Kincardine every year.
So you're taking all the credit for that.
Oh, well, I was a small player.
Bruce Almighty.
I was a
made
small player.
huge by Tony Baldinelli.
But the one great aspect of that was we helped British Energy when they moved to Ontario looking for this opportunity. We helped them find their offices. We moved them into offices. And then we became their company of choice when we started doing the RFP process. And then once they secured the request for proposal and the contract to operate Kincardine, I ended up going up there every second week and doing their community relations.
Awesome.
So you're starting from a brand new company who's trying to get into the community, impress the community, and kind of set roots in. So
Building blocks, the building blocks.
All about communications.
Well, and then also working with the dairy farmers of Ontario. They were a client of mine as well. So we had the opportunity to do school.
Milk does a body good. Just take a look.
Yeah.
So what made you, Tony, decide to put your hat in the ring to go into the other side of politics, which is actually being a member of Parliament?
Well, again, you know, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about community. I came back home in 2001, and I've been working for the Niagara Parks Commission ever since. And community is important to me. My whole working career has been based on the premise, really, of helping people, and that's something that's a foundation of my working career. And you know, when I was talking to Rob after he announced his resignation, I gave him a call. I thanked him for everything that he had done for this riding and for me personally. And kiddingly, I tried to convince him to rethink his choice. But then he asked me, he says, Tony, why don't you consider running?
Well,
and you know what? After talking with my wife and, you know, seeing how my family would.
You got to have a supportive wife.
I tell you, my wife has been.
Or a quiet one.
She's been fabulous throughout this entire period.
That's
I'd
incredible.
like to say, you know what? She's ended up taking my dream and turning it into our dream. And I've got a 13-year-old son. And the other day we were canvassing, and he was going door to door knocking and asking people to support, you know, and he would say, my dad. And so from that standpoint,
so you're teaching them young. You're teaching them young.
Yes, you can say that.
Incredible. I got a couple of questions here for you. So let's start off with what Niagara-based issue do you hope to bring to caucus to try to resolve as your top priority for our constituency of Niagara?
Well, you know what? It's not just the Niagara issue. I think it's one of affordability. You know, it's about helping not only people in Niagara, but all Canadians get ahead, not just buy. Mm-hmm. You know, if you remember, it was about 2 weeks ago, you know, the Fraser Institute made a report, and it says the average family spent more on taxes last year than on basic necessities of housing, food, and clothing combined. Yeah. So how is it that we can work as a government to reduce taxes, reduce the burden on the average day taxpayer and family so that they can get ahead?
We're all for, I mean, I think most, not just Ontario or Niagara, I think most of Canada is all for giving back. However, there's only so much you can give back before now you're sacrificing from yourself. And I think the whole idea of giving back is giving back the extras, you know, the extras that you can give back after you've taken care of your own. And it's tough on families when, you know, they're seeing taxes increase and billions of dollars being thrown all over the place. It's nothing's free, but when it comes at the expense of the average taxpayer, it's tough. It's tough.
Well, you know, I always like to say liberals think they can do a better job of spending your money than the hardworking taxpayer at home who has to go over their budget every day and determine how they're going to go out and spend their money. So if we can leave more money in their pockets, that's a good thing.
So
absolutely, because people, you know, people are generous. Canada is just a generous country, and they're, you know, if you're taking care, I mean, if you're taking care of the average families, I mean, people will still donate money. I mean, you don't have to tax people to death to get their money. People will voluntarily donate their money to a good cause. That's just what we do as Canadians. We're always the first to jump on situations that happen around the world. And GoFundMe pages, I see them all over the place. I mean, people are now, you know, posting, you know, in lieu of birthday thanks and cards and parties,
they do
donating to this cause and to this cause. So people do have money to give. They just don't want to be, they don't want to be told you have to give through your taxes, because taxes is just an evil.
So,
but it's also about ensuring that the monies that we do spend and the taxes that we do go to those programs that all Canadians need and deserve.
well, this is exactly what I wanted to ask. So the next step is, how is the PC party going to tackle these problems?
Well, for example, when we look at the healthcare, our leader Andrew Scheer just recently announced his healthcare guarantee, and so over the next term of office, the Conservative government has committed to increase healthcare and the social transfer by 3% per year. That's about $55 billion that we send to the provinces each year to use for healthcare and social spending. And you know what? I mean, if you saw some of the articles and stories that were out when Scheer talked about it, the importance of the healthcare system, I don't think anyone disagrees about. I mean, just from a personal standpoint, you know, me and my wife, you know, we got married later in life. And
so did I.
So when we decided to have a family, well, we were going to have twin boys, identical twin boys. Well, what happened was they were born 15 weeks too early. So they were born at 25 weeks. My one son weighed 680 grams, and my other son, David, who passed away after 3 days, only weighed 460 grams.
Oh.
So what happened was, it was an incredible journey. Daniel spent 136 days in hospital. He had heart surgery 7 days in. He had a hernia operation before he came home.
Wow.
He, doctor said he had a grade 4 brain bleed, which could lead to learning difficulties, you know, some paralysis. But you know what? After that incredible journey, and Daniel now being home with us, he wears hearing aids, and he needs hearing aids, and they think that could have been a result of all the medicines that he was using. But I'm pleased to say that he's your typical 13-year-old boy, and that's a great thing. But if you think about it,
it could have been a disaster.
Oh, a disaster, and it didn't cost me and my wife a penny.
Well, that's one of the good things about the Canadian healthcare system, is that at the point of use, it doesn't cost.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, the nurses.
It costs us through our taxes, etc. But I'm fine with that.
No, and I think every Canadian, and then that's the great thing, regardless of your political stripe, will believe in the sanctity and the power of our healthcare system. It's a benefit to us as a country moving forward.
It's a real benefit to us.
Yeah.
So here we are again in downtown Niagara Falls. Voice of Niagara is tuning in at 4680Q. And for those that just tuned in, we're here with Tony Baldinelli, the Conservative member that's running in the next election as Rob Nicholson is formerly retired from politics. So if anyone has any questions that they personally like to ask Rob, you can call my cell at 905-704-9691. Again, that's 905-704-9691. Tony, another question here. What is your most important issue that you feel nationally that should be the top priority of the government of the day should you be elected? And what would your stance be on that issue?
Well, I mean, going back, and we talked about it earlier, it's affordability. It's about ensuring that Canadians have an ability to get ahead, not just get by. So that's talking about taxes. I mean, the economy is booming, but not everyone is benefiting from that. I mean, at a time when the housing situation is, I mean, what's happening is the average taxpayer, the average person is to the point where they're not going to be able to afford a home in this country. And that's not wrong.
Have we got a shortfall of homes? And it's a question that comes to my mind. You know, we've invited and we've growing the population here in Canada, and we've invited people like myself to come along to Canada, and yet not everybody's like me who can afford to buy a house, but there's plenty of immigrants who may not necessarily be able to buy, but rental, you know, they're finding rental, a lack of rental units.
Yeah, and how, you know, and the federal government does have a role to play, and it provides the provinces with funding so that they can get into the housing housing business and create more housing units.
Well, my main concern isn't so much. I mean, you mentioned you have a son, and I have a son and a daughter as well. Still young. My main concern is, as most people, not so much myself. I have a home. I'm more concerned about our children when they grow up.
Oh, absolutely.
And their abilities to find a job, their abilities to buy a car, their abilities to buy a home. I mean, I see employment, even for kids, completely disappearing. I mean, McDonald's, I just saw a commercial just a couple of days ago. The guy shows up with a crying baby, and every time he takes a step forward to get to the counter, the baby cries. So he decides to order through the app, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's all fine and dandy. Yeah, everything is an app nowadays. Unfortunately, I'm not an app. Otherwise, my wife wouldn't need me. But the problem is you click that app. Every time you click that app, you're getting rid of somebody's job, your children's job, my children's job, your neighbor's children's job. There's nowhere for these children to work. So yeah, these things are conveniences. We get it. But employment and taxes, yeah, that should be a priority for any government that gets in. Yeah, I agree.
You're absolutely right, Domenic. I mean, what more can we do as a federal government, you know, to work with the municipalities, work with the provinces to diversify the economy, to make lives and opportunities greater for everyone. I mean, here in Niagara, for example, I mean, you know, tourism is the largest probably employer here that we now have. I mean, what can we continue to do working with the provinces and the municipalities to continue to foster that? But how can we now work with those two other levels of government to diversify the economy?
I think there's a leading role that the national government, the federal government, has to play.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely
in steering the other levels of government down the right path.
I mean, there was just recently a Senate report that was produced, and they actually came out and advocated for the creation of a mid-peninsula corridor to enhance additional routes and supplies so that for transportation. What can we do to foster innovation, free trade zones, working with our municipalities? I mean, why can't we bonus here?
Yeah.
But why are jobs being created in South Carolina instead of Fort Erie?
Yeah.
You know, what can we do to ensure?
We have lots of room. Unfortunately,
we've
got to have someone in government that is either in government or has a strong voice as an opposition of government that can bring jobs, other corporations, other businesses here in Niagara. I mean, when I see somebody like General GE opening up a plant in Welland, fantastic for Welland. But why didn't they approach Niagara? Why didn't they approach Niagara? I scratch my head just wondering why that is.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if you talk to the mayor, he did indicate that they actually did approach Niagara first.
Okay.
And it was just the amount of land that they were looking for.
Well, we've
And
got
so-
tons of land. We've got plans for a future hospital. There's
Yeah.
land somewhere.
Oh yeah, there's always that.
There's always land.
So, I mean, I'll give Jim kudos for putting them on to others within the region and finding an appropriate location.
Fantastic,
So,
Jim.
so
Thumbs up, Jim.
from that standpoint, I'll give him credit. But we need more of that. So that
We need a lot more of that.
Well, I think
how can we get further industries to get located here? What can we do to ensure those bridges are not a bottleneck anymore? To ensure the commerce continues to cross unfettered.
well, the other question that I have is that I believe that a lot of the growth that we need to have commercially in our local area needs to come within small businesses, even businesses that aren't even in existence today.
Well, you're absolutely
We
right.
need to encourage all that growth.
And small business is the foundation of our economy.
Absolutely.
So what can we do to help support them? What can we do to reduce their tax burden so that they can continue to foster growth and job creation? I mean, many of them are family owned and run. If you remember a couple of years ago, the Liberal government, one of the first things they wanted to do was increase the tax on small businesses. What they wanted to do was
I'm not a fan of that.
They were going to tax you if you sold it to your family members. So
Yeah, and that's
why are
all.
they doing that?
Small businesses, small local businesses, and local construction companies, they are the foundation to helping the economy grow. Without small
Absolutely.
businesses,
No.
economy doesn't grow.
You're absolutely
We need
right.
to help. We need to help the small businesses. They're the ones that are going to hire, as I mentioned earlier, your children and my children, right? Getting a job, waiting on tables, bartending, whatever it takes. They are the ones that we as parents count on.
Yeah.
Support. We should be supporting their areas of business, whatever that area of small business is, to encourage them to grow and hire our children. That's what this is all about hiring our children.
Yeah.
What is your stance on, I've listened to the Trudeau government, and they're talking a lot about the environment and single plastic use. And it's funny because ever since he said we're getting rid of single use plastics, I'm finding there's a lot of things single use. So we went, so every time I make a hamburger, I take out a slice of cheese to put it on the burger. That's single use plastic.
Yep.
Plastic water bottles, single use plastic. I take a toy out of a box, single use plastic. I mean, it all ends up in recycling. We've got more recycling today than I remember as a kid. Walking down to the corner store with a couple of bottles of Coca-Cola to get my 25 cents so I can come back with some candy, with that quarter and a bag of chips and another bottle of pop, which back then was a nickel. So, I mean, a quarter's come a long way. But what is your stance on all this, talk about single-use plastic in our environment, and do you agree with it? Should it be a different position? Because we get rid of the single-use plastic, there ain't going to be any plastic left, and that to me is fantastic. But what are you going to wrap my cheese in so I can put it in my put it in my hamburger?
Well, I mean, in terms of our environment, I don't think anybody from the political parties will disagree. We need to do more to protect our environment.
Yeah.
It's just how we get there and how quickly we can get there. I mean, in terms of the federal Liberal government and this carbon tax, I mean, why are they instituting a carbon tax where they're saying they're going to give 90% of that money back? So, I mean, what's the point of
What's the point in it?
What's the point of introducing a tax if you're giving it back?
Yeah.
Use the regulatory powers that you do have to set limits on emitters. I mean, Andrew Scheer came out with his environmental policy 2 or 3 weeks ago, and so he's going to put a cap, a 40 kiloton cap on large industrial emitters, and there'll be fines that'll have to be paid, and those funds will then go into clean technologies and spur on the development of clean technologies. So Dominic, to your point, where we can start to address issues of single-use plastics,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, using that, I mean, what more can we do to assist families again? We're talking in Andrew Scheer, as part of his environmental policies, is talking about going back to the renovation tax credit for clean technologies. So if you invest in your home,
Exactly.
they're going to give you a tax credit to do so that makes your home energy efficient. So it'll
Yeah.
allow you to, fix that furnace.
Yeah, so to allow you to get the insulation material for the walls, etc.
I mean, that was a very popular program.
Yeah.
Many years ago. That was ended by this little government.
Well, that was a program that was actually, if you think about it, how much people are spending on things like insulation, they cost quite a lot of money, to get it done. So having a federal program that helps people get it done means that you're burning less fuel, for your winter fuel, and you're using less coolant in the summer as well.
I'd like to see more incentives go out to where the source of the pollutants are. We have one of the things that really upset me is when a corporation got Zehrs. I'm going to say Zehrs. They got a whole whack of money,
12 million
for a refrigerator. They are a profit corporation. They shouldn't have got a dime, in my opinion. It was very disturbing that I saw that. I think a lot of people were upset about it. It was one of the first things that came out. Carbon tax came out, and then a month later, boom, here's your present.
Yeah,
it was just an incredible thing that I just couldn't believe. But companies and corporations, they've been allowed to pollute our earth. I mean, I know that us as private citizens and voters and people that live here, we're always to blame. We're blamed that there's plastic bottles everywhere. Well, why were the plastic bottles allowed to
come in the first place?
When I was a kid, we had bottled pop. Why were these people allowed? Why was Coca-Cola and Pepsi allowed to put it in a plastic container? So they put it all in this plastic container. Now we've got a plastic bottle. What do we do with this plastic bottle? Okay, so everybody's like, well, get rid of the plastic water bottles. Well, what about the plastic Coke bottles and the plastic Gatorade bottles? I mean, I went to a Stag and Doe about a week and a half ago. Great Stag and Doe in Welland, by the way.
Stop advertising.
Oh, we made all like bandits. We won a whole cooler case of booze. It was unbelievable. My wife did a dance all night. Tired her out though. But okay, that's a whole nother story. But what happened is you go to Stag and Doe's, all these people that, on Facebook, and they're making comments, get rid of it. Well, what are they giving away? Well, you can buy some bottled water everywhere. It's just there in Gatorade, in Coke, in Pepsi, in water. I mean, it's all over. I'm surprised that the milk doesn't come in it, but it,
well, it does in many parts.
In many parts. But the thing is this plastic they've allowed these corporations to do it. When it first came out, they should have come out and said, no, keep it in the bottle. Now, going backwards and telling these companies who converted all their machines to dispense plastic bottles as opposed to the aluminum cans that we had when I was growing up, bottles or
glass bottles.
Glass bottles even before my time. Now you're going to get them to go back. They're going to want to pay out.
Well, here, I mean, to your point, in our policy program, so we're going to put that cap on the large industrial emitters. So if you go over the cap, you're going to get penalized. And so those funds that are raised are going to go into the creation of new green technologies that can address the issues that you're raising out. But I mean, Domenic, that you're talking about, I mean, even the Parliamentary Budget Office talked about, the Liberal plan with the carbon tax at $50 a kiloton now. They have to double it to $100, and still they would have difficulties even getting to their pledge of the Paris targets.
Yeah.
The problem that we face in Canada, I mean, if you listen to the Liberal government, we're the whole problem in the world. No, we're not. I mean,
we're not the whole problem of the world.
Issue.
It's a global issue.
I mean, in terms of CO2 emissions, we're 1.6% of the world's problem.
Right? And we're fairly neutral in comparison to much of the world.
We're such a carbon we're such a carbon sink in terms of our large forests.
But everything flows here. From my studies and from my reading up, I mean, half the stuff that ends up in our oceans and waters down here originally started in China. So it gets dumped in China and it goes down its merry path, and all of a sudden it ends up in Canada. It's like, oh, look, Canada, what are you guys doing?
Well,
fear-mongering.
Here's an interesting thing. And, you look at South Africa, India, Philippines, South Korea, Japan and China. They're all signatories to the Paris Accord, like Canada is.
Yeah.
And they're building right now a combined 1,800 new coal-fired generating stations.
Yeah.
If you think about it, coal emits 2 times the CO2 that natural gas does.
Yeah.
So here we got a federal government that's delaying the building of pipelines which can take liquefied natural gas
The other
from
thing,
Vancouver to the West Coast so that we can send it out to those Asian countries, and that we can help not only our industry and our oil and gas sector through the development of pipelines, building new refineries, sending that out to the east countries in the east. We can help reduce emissions by doing that.
but the
Absolutely.
other thing that coal does is not just those emissions that you were talking about. It emits poisons into the air, which take a heck of a lot longer to actually get cleared through, through the world's atmosphere.
You're absolutely correct.
One of our followers on the NFV Pack, one of the Voice of Niagara groups that we have several in the area. If anybody wants to Google and join, just type in Facebook Voice of Niagara, and you'll see all our groups. Join one, join them all. But we have one of our members, a good friend of mine that I've known for maybe over 20 years. There's something that can be done with the garbage that we sent somewhere, and now they're sending it back. Isn't there a clean way or a clean facility that we can have in every province of our country where we can burn our garbage in a clean manner, where we can actually get energy even out of that product, as we're doing?
Well, that's a whole bit about looking at that whole green technologies and how do we further support that growth.
Yeah.
I believe there was a new incinerator built in the Durham region about 2 or 3 years ago, and I believe they're already at capacity. I mean, they've been looking here, the region had been looking, but you'd almost have to partner with another municipality, say for Hamilton, to look at that idea.
What's wrong with doing that? These are something that we desperately need to do.
Not with the technologies today. I mean, in terms of emissions, you can get it virtually clean. I mean,
get it virtually clean.
They're doing it in Europe.
They're doing it in Europe, exactly.
And my understanding is there's even one in
Zero emissions, by the way.
Zero emissions.
So you take your plastics, you take your recyclables, you take that out of the diversion stream prior to then using the incineration to create power that you can put back into the grid.
Would you be looking to be a part of that trio where you're establishing a connection between our city and maybe other cities, and maybe some federal funding and provincial funding to make that happen in our area here in southern Niagara?
Well, that's something to take a look at. Well, I can commit that I'll be committed to working with the municipalities and the province if that's something they want to look at. We'll sit around the table and talk about that.
Excellent. Yeah, that's definitely an area that we want to get into, for sure, 100%.
Well, I think that's something that Canada needs to kind of start playing a leading role. There's profit in it. There's a lot of profit to be made in it, and those things that are recyclable should be recycled, and should be, things like bottles. We can reuse bottles, and we'd be better off using glass rather than plastic.
The government the government agencies and the governments that do jobs for Canada, for example, I'll mention the ones here in Ontario. You got the LCBO, you got the beer store, you got the liquor stores, you got the little shops that are able to sell alcohol now. I don't know, when I'm able always to return my empties. They've never changed their model. When I go to the liquor store, they put my bottles in paper. Sometimes they double wrap them so they don't cling together, as I'm trying to sneak the booze in the house so my wife doesn't know. But I mean, they're leading by examples. I mean, and me as a consumer, you try to get your bags out, and sometimes you buy too many groceries, and where are you supposed to put these bags? There's only so many bags a person has, or sometimes they're out and about and they're out up north and they have their bags full of goodies that they brought in their car to Niagara, and they're out. There's no paper bag option. I mean, it's just all this plastic stuff. So the government's leading by example.
Well, in another situation or example, you may have heard, I think it was about a week ago, that the province is actually looking at the whole blue box program right now. So there could be news coming down the road, Dominic, that all of us want to hear, and how they may want to change, update that whole program. So let's keep in touch.
I'd like to see that program changed, because I think we're ineffective in our garbage collection. We have too many late arrivals, late pickups and things like that. And I know these are entirely local-based issues, regional-based issues, but they all have an impact across.
We're never going to entirely get rid of plastic. I mean, delays are not going to, whether there's a delay in garbage or if it's on time or not, that's not going to increase or decrease our garbage. But we end up putting our garbage in plastic bags. Yeah. I mean, whether it's a black bag, green bag, plastic bag, it's going in plastic. You're never going to get rid of plastic completely, because it's all over the world. I mean, some of the sheets and coats and clothes that we wear have a plastic imprint in these clothes. I mean, that's true. That's why you buy a clothes and it dries 5 minutes after you took a dump in the oceans. And so I should have said dunk, not dump. Forgive me. But I mean, they come out dry. Why is that? Because of the nylon product that the product is made of. We're never going to get rid of it. I mean, the solution, in my opinion, is to find a clean way to divert all this garbage from our landfills into a program where it can be burned in a clean, green, sustainable way, where you never know, with the technology we have, we might be able to get more energy out of that, burning garbage to get energy.
Yep.
No, it was funny. In a single-use plastic, you'll look, for example, this bottle.
Yeah.
I have an uncle who lives in the United States, just across the border in Buffalo, and they were visiting one day. And he was just getting out of his car, and he had finished his drink, and he gave it to me, and I said, "Do you want me to throw it in recycle?" I said, "Oh no, it's refundable." So again, he takes it back. To your point, Dominic.
Refundable. Why not?
Refund, and it goes into.
Exactly.
Why not?
It's guaranteed to go into the recycle stream.
Exactly.
Well, I remember as a kid, when we only had bottles for things like Coke, the Coca-Cola man would come in, and the first thing he would do
me and Tony had Neo. Neo!
But the first thing that
Neo or Brio.
that Coke guy would do would be take the trolley out to the back, pick up all the recyclables, and take them out to the truck. Mm-hmm. And the only problem he had really there was if you happened to be the first store on the route. Yeah. And he had to juggle the new stuff he was getting versus the old stuff he would be putting back on the truck. But the point being is everybody recycled. It was part of the normal process.
And it's how, like I said, over time things will change, and it becomes force of habit, because a lot of the recyclables now become contaminated. I mean, you've still got food in a container, but if you throw that in the recycling bin, well, it's contaminated. You can't use that. You can't recycle that. So how do we change people's ways and habits so that those things slowly change?
But is it up to individual people to change, or should we put all of that stuff in a garbage?
It's everyone's.
Well, I was going to propose another thing, or do we change how we do our garbage collection, and then we pick them up as we pick the whole thing up, just throw the contents of your bin straight into a truck with a wheelie bin, and have the people at the garbage center sort it? They're the experts in recycling. We're not.
Yeah. I mean, that's again. I mean, it's a whole different way to look at how you handle it. And well, again, that's something that as we go forward, the province should be coming out with new directions and new ideas.
Well, the ideas. I mean, the ideas are supposed to be. They should be proactive. I mean, we're already using all this plastic. Going after these companies. And telling them to reduce their plastics at the source is the admirable place to start, in my opinion. I mean, if they're you go buy anything nowadays. You buy this little thing, and and I'm sure everybody's seen it, especially at Costco. Costco's famous for this. You've got the little products, and it's wrapped in, it almost looks like a picture frame. It's wrapped in all this plastic that you can't open, and then it's on the outside has got the paper. I mean, even to throw the thing out, I mean, it takes me about 5 minutes to take the thing apart, to take the thing out, and then you got to take it to garbage. Half of it goes in the blue bin, the other half goes in the gray bin. It's just too much waste. I mean, and again, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to, deter people from stealing the small items. I get it. I get that. But there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. There has to be.
Well, at some point, those small items used to be on the shelf behind the cashier.
They used to be behind the cashier.
And there used to be a bigger cashier out there.
I did a post about a month ago. We went to Costco and we bought some Advil. So the Advil normally came in a paper box with the pill bottle inside. Well, this one came, the paper box, pill bottle inside, wrapped in a plastic, framed like a frame, and here it is on the display. Like, I mean, we've gotten so crazy as individuals. I used to go with my parents anywhere, whether it's at farmers, we loved to go to the farmers as kids, and whether we went to the grocery store, and we used to go buy corn. Here's your corn. You pick your corn, you put it in your bag, or you put it in your cart, and off you go. Now it's half, clean, put in a styrofoam container. We hate styrofoam at my house. Completely hate it. You'll never find styrofoam at my house. And then it's wrapped in cellophane. People, are we this crazy that we can't take a chance on corn that's 5 for $1? It's 5 for $1. Pick 5, go home. You might get a bad one. It's okay. But these stores are trying to attract us because we're afraid that we're going to have one bad apple in the bunch. We're adding to this problem of our environment. So these stores are getting crafty. No one's buying the corn because, we don't know how to take the stuff off. Well, you just grab it by the top and pull it down and it's in. It's a done deal. Everything is wrapped and cleaned and over cleaned, and it's giving us all this garbage. Can we change our habits? I mean, it's a mutual cooperation between the companies that we shop at, these grocery stores that we shop at, and us as individual shoppers. So there's only so much we can do. But if the only option when we go to the store, we're planning a barbecue, because a lot of people don't go to farms, unfortunately, but the people that go to stores, you go to 5, 6 stores here in town, and you've got the same problem. Everything's wrapped in cellophane and put in a container. I mean, and I know a lot of people, they get off you make comments on Facebook. Well, we bring our own containers. That's not the solution. It's not. And I've read them, and I haven't commented. You can't go to the grocery store with your Tupperware, slit, the steak, put your steaks in your Tupperware, and then bring them to the front to be paid. What is that store going to do with that? They're not going to reuse it. It's going to go in the garbage. Yep. So you're not adding to the solution by going there and putting everything in your Tupperware containers. It's not a solution. It's already in the Tupperware container. I mean, in a wrapped material with cellophane and other products. You're either going to throw it out or they're going to throw it out. At the end of the day, it ends up in the landfill.
And corporate garbage usually doesn't get recycled in the same way as household garbage.
We're so afraid. We're so afraid of addressing these issues with these corporations. Loblaws, which is a large corporation, they own several stores in the area, and these Sobeys, and we're so afraid to address them and say, guys, you got to figure out another way to wrap your stuff.
Yep.
Wrap your products. Instead, it's not that way at all.
Tony.
Well, I mean, I think we've talked a lot about the environment and the future of recycling and green technologies. And so I guess we can move on to kind of other areas. Peter, I mean, I know you have been talking about what more we can do here. Like I said, we can defer, what can we do here to kind of diversify the economy? What more can we do to enhance the infrastructure around the bridges to ensure the commerce?
Well, absolutely.
Across those borders, and continues to do that.
Yeah.
What more can we do to support our agricultural community in Niagara Lake and Virgil, and David, so that they can continue to prosper?
And in some respects of that is you just talked about bridges, but for one example, I would say both the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge and the Peace Bridge in Fort Erie both need doubling in size.
Eventually, we're going to get to that point. I mean, like I said, if we take a serious look at that Senate report that advocates for a new mid-peninsula corridor, you're going to have to examine that whole Fort Erie Buffalo crossing, and that's a good thing. Like I said, what can we do more to assist both the municipalities and the province to kind of encourage a free trade zone, to get businesses to build here? You're within a day, 2 days of what, 800 million people?
Yeah, exactly.
Just within an 8-hour drive.
Oh yeah, we're perfectly situated.
Placed.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the healthcare, which reduces the cost, right? I mean, we've got a talented, we've got an educated workforce, we've got a great education system. How can we make those stronger? How can we support the province as we go forward to, to start studying those technologies of the future? Those courses that we're going to need in the future to support our children, so that they have those jobs of the future, so that they can stay home. To your point earlier, Domenic, I've got a 13-year-old son. I want him to stay home.
Yeah. And the thing is, if he goes away to university, it doesn't matter where he goes to university, let's say Saskatchewan, for example, but he should be then thinking about coming home and doing whatever he's going to be doing next from home.
There's not much here.
That's the thing. That's the problem. And that's where we need to turn it around and open this city for business.
Those areas are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Like, not to repeat myself, but I gave the example of McDonald's. I mean, everything's everything's an app away from eliminating a job.
Yeah. So how can we work together, everyone, to ensure that those future jobs are being located here in Niagara?
Quite.
Right, it was interesting. I was talking to someone the other day. I don't know if you saw the story about the Corvettes. They're actually beautiful bodies, but they're going to put a mid-size engine in it, so that a person it makes it more affordable for the average day person. So how do we work with GM, who used to build the engines here in St. Catharines for the main Corvette?
Right.
How do we get them to build those engines here? What can we do to ensure that GM continues to maintain and employ good paying
people locally? Yeah.
I was lucky enough. I spent 4 summers with General Motors. It paid for my university, and you know what? I'm loyal to them. Every vehicle I own is a GM product because they took care of me and they put me through university.
There's a lot of people that have said that they're turning their backs on GM, just a similar, basically for the similar situation that happened with Heinz. I mean, with the plants closing in the areas in Ontario, moving, job cuts. I think GM announced a job cut in one of their plants, and a lot of people were just really upset about that.
But a lot of that was because of government input into General Motors, government money in General Motors.
In my opinion alone, we helped them during the bailout.
Yeah.
Okay. They forgot. That's my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
When you help somebody, I'm not saying they owe us anything. No company does. I mean, you do a favor, you help people out. You expect we live in a culture and an environment where you don't expect anything in return, but you do appreciate when people remember how you helped them out. For them to turn around and cut jobs, to me, I took that personally as a slap in the face because they used our money. Yes, they paid it back. That's fantastic. And we thank you, GM, for paying it back. However, you didn't have anything to pay back, you would have closed down years ago and moved out.
How do we ensure GM finds it still attractive enough to invest here instead of places like Mexico or the southern U.S.? So how do we work together, all governments, all local levels of government, to sit down and create those conditions so that they build here? This should be a fabulous area to build.
It is. How do you feel the economy? I know that I've talked to a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people that look at the U.S. and they're always comparing the U.S. to Canada. I mean, they're our neighbors, so it's a great comparison. But they seem to be booming, and we seem to be looming. And how do we reverse that? How do we get to a point where we're seeing, you know, build in Canada, you know, work in Canada, buy in Canada? How do we get to a point where we're I mean, I'm not, you know, don't want you to get into a Trump discussion.
No.
But you know, but I wanted to talk about simply the economy.
Moving the economy.
There's no doubt that their economy right now, regardless of anybody's opinion, is doing well.
Well, for example, I mean, we're in a competitive environment. Business will go where it's economically makes sense for them to locate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the things Trump did, I mean, regardless of what you think of Trump and
We can't bleep Trump out, sorry.
so, but I mean, he did upon winning the election, he did reduce the tax for non-capital investment.
He did.
For businesses.
Yeah.
And that's important.
And at one time, we had the lowest in North America. And so now we're to the point where we're uncompetitive. So how do we get back, and how can we reduce our businesses, our business tax rates, so that money will flow back here, so that industry invests back here in Canada, creating Canadian jobs instead of going down south?
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest challenges I think we've seen over the last decade or so has been loss of things like Nortel communications, and of course the massive hit that that RIM's Research in Motion has taken. BlackBerry, yeah.
One day, BlackBerry, everyone carried BlackBerry. I mean,
yeah, and then the next day nobody wants to know it.
But that's the economy of the future, though. That goes to show you what are we doing to train not only industry but our children, because those technologies, those jobs of the future, our children are going to have to train so that when they grow up and finish university, they're going to be going to 4, 5, 6 different kinds of jobs. Gone are the days where my dad came here in 1951. 3 months after arriving, he got a job at Cyanamid, which was a petrochemical company, and worked there for 40 years.
Yeah, long gone are those days.
The technology changes have reduced that. Even the cultural differences. Today's millennial doesn't want to be stay at one particular place. So they're of that ilk to move forward and change jobs all the time.
Yes.
But we have to ensure that we're training them for the future.
But I think it's not just about the people who in employment. Yes, personally, during my life, I've never stayed at one company all my life, and I've never considered it as part of what I would, you know, as a good employee practice, if you know what I mean. But my concern is that actually those 2 examples of Research in Motion and Nortel Communications is that I see it as being somewhat of a the CEOs or the leaders in those companies being blindsided by other things that are going on in the world.
And they weren't ready for it.
And they weren't ready for it. They weren't ready for the commercial change that happened. They thought they were leaders in their field when there's at a certain point they were not. And it's, to my mind, there's an element there of training and knowledge, you know, helping people work better as a business.
Instead of resting on your laurels.
Yeah, exactly.
It's how can you improve it, make it better, and continue to sell that product going on. Yeah,
quite. And it doesn't matter what the product is, whether you're talking about, you know, nice little cell phones like this or, you know, low-tech books like this. They're all products that need, you know, that kind of thinking. What's the next step?
Well, I mean, just look at that as an example how things have changed. I remember working for Rob, and one of the greatest things, oh wow, we've got a fax machine. We can actually communicate. We can communicate and send material down to the office in Niagara Falls without having just, you know, to call and, you know, recite passages. We can actually send a whole speech down by fax machine. Well, fax machine is almost obsolete today.
Yeah.
Right. So obsolete. Just, well, even cell phones. And remember, they used to be the size of almost, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I still have mine.
Yeah. So
you still have it, Rick?
My 550. I should have brought it. My 550 flip.
So it's incredible. So how things have changed.
Yeah.
Lots have changed.
But you see, being ahead of the change is something that I think our business needs to be either taught how to do it or needs to come up. And it's the same with the environmental issues we were talking about before, but being able to be conscious and know that you can actually build a future, and that your future isn't just 5 minutes for your corporation. It has a 30-year future, because I think that helps everybody in our society.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
So we're just running out of time here, Tony, in Niagara Falls downtown, and on behalf of Voice of Niagara and one of our groups, NFV PAC, we thank you for coming out. Before we sign off, what is your final word, or what are your final comments that you want everyone to hear, and why they should vote you as our representative of Niagara?
Thank you, Peter and Dominic, for this opportunity. It was great. And Peter, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned about, you'll be surprised how quickly an hour goes, and it did go by quite quickly. Again, I'm running because I believe in community and wanting to make a difference here in our community for our children and everyone's children, and ensuring that there's a prosperous future here so that our children can stay back here in Niagara. It's about helping families and seniors save more. It's about creating opportunities for business. It's about lowering taxes and balancing the budget. I mean, if this government has a fault, they talk about openness and transparency. They talk about balanced budgets in 5 years, and they fail miserably. It's about keeping our borders safe and secure, and it's about putting the rights of victims ahead of criminals. So those are some of the key priorities. Those are some of the things that you're going to hear me talk door to door, and when I'm out, at our debates. So I look forward to, discussing the issues with all the local candidates. People like to criticize politicians, but ultimately I believe that, people are in this for the right reasons, because ultimately they want to help people. And you know what? You can't criticize somebody for wanting to do that. So I look forward to working with all the other candidates. I look forward to putting forward, a positive message from the Conservative Party and from myself. And I hope people on October 21st will be going into that election box and voting for me, because they see and agree with the positive vision that we're putting forward.
Fantastic.
I'd like to thank you for coming along and spending an hour with us today here, Tony, because I think it's the sort of things that we need to hear in Niagara Falls. It's right. It's a question for everybody in the Greater Niagara constituency. They need to think about how they are going to vote and what the future means to them. Is it Tony they're going to support, or is it any of the other candidates? The question that we are here really talking about is, like, by opening the issues up and by putting them out on Your City, Your Voice, it's about airing the issues and giving people the knowledge and the choice to make the right decision, or to make the appropriate decision that they believe in is right.
Great. Thank you so much for allowing me this chance.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks again.